Hello guys, I am back from another video and today we're talking about what if deku was experimented on. So, we talked about how after the whole USJ incident, they basically left home as they were told by UA that they're gonna be having dorms, and it's better that way in case of like a villain attack. When Endeavor heard of this, he decided to tell both Izuku and Todoroki that they're gonna be staying in the dorms. And for a certain girl, aka his other sister, aka Koyumi, was pretty happy about that. Not the whole Izuku leaving things because, well, Izumi likes his brother. Not in that way. He likes she likes Izuku very much, just like an actual brother or sister or whatever. But the only thing that she hates about him is the insects running around her kitchen. So, after they basically gone home, or basically like gone to the dorms, they also meet some other people, including Izumi, which I accidentally said Izuka, which is going to be another name for another series. That's just foreshadowing. So, so Izumi's mother is also there, aka Inko, also known as Izuku's real mother. And when she saw Izuku in the corner of her eye, she couldn't believe it. Izuku's alive. She wanted to talk to him, but she got distracted and thought it was just an illusion. Probably just guilt. So, a bit of shenanigans come up in the dorms after they made it there. And also one where apparently, Melissa is basically on top of him one time when he first, came to the dorms and basically was sleeping for the first night. Yeah, let's just say everybody was just like confused. So, after a while of like shenanigans, we basically left that episode by seeing Izuku sleeping with Todoroki, but not in that way. So, yeah, that's basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, we're gonna be starting off this episode, well, basically after the 2 weeks of rest. Or the 2 weeks of after the USJ incident, where they started going back to class as it's basically the day of the sports festival. So, Aizawa would tell everybody that all of you are excited, so you better win. As he just gives off this monotone voice, as everybody was just like awkward at the time. But not as awkward as Izuku and Todoroki. They're pretty much blushing the whole time after, waking up. Because remember, they were basically, you know. So, after that, they started leaving as they started going to the locker rooms to change. As everybody would start talking, saying that their parents are there, as Izuku would say this. Well, apparently, Endeavor's gonna be there. As one of them would say this. Wait, I remember that you had the name Todoroki, right? So are you related to Enji Todoroki? As he would say this. Isn't that freaking obvious? I am the adopted brother of Todoroki, so. As one of them would say this. Yeah, I can't believe you actually didn't notice that connection. As he says this. Please don't judge me like that, guys. As they would just say, anyway, whatever. As Izuku would say this, yeah, we should probably start going now. As when they started going into the, sports festival proper, as in the stadium, they see several people cheering them on. Not only that, they see some pro heroes seeing them, as they are basically thinking if they can become, great heroes. Not only that, one member stood out to Izuku, and that is Damien, aka one of the members of the, Hero Commission. Not only that, Izuku's manager. As in manager, I mean the one that usually tells him to, like, I don't know, like torture, kill, or even, well, destroy the lives of villains or rogue heroes. So when Izuku saw him, he just thought, great, him. As they would see, well, one hero arrive, being the 18 plus hero known as Midnight. As she smacks her whip, tells everybody, are they all ready? As all of the boys basically just like says, hell yeah! All of the girls are just like, why? As for Izuku, he didn't say, oh hell yeah, but instead just like looked at her and said, is she seriously supposed to be a hero? I think I just saw her from, like, I don't know, like a certain website or something. She just Izuku just thought, as she would say this. Anyway, so I want the first year representative to come here and tell a speech. As this first year representative is Izumi, because of her talented look. As when Bakugo saw this, he, well, looks like he's physically looking like he's about to explode. As Izuku would say, well, I better get away from that little incident. As, well, Izumi would start saying that she wants to tell everybody that they can become a hero no matter what. And basically what you think. Basically just like if Izuku was the first year representative, that's what I imagine, well, Izuku would actually say. So, he would start getting ready for the first event, being the obstacle race. So, when Izuku saw this, Izuku would just say this. This is gonna be easy. As his legs would become almost like grasshopper legs, as one person would notice. A man that resembles another insect just like him. It seems to be more like a praying mantis than anything else, as he says this. So, I have another insect like ally. I certainly need to talk to him later. As Midnight would say this, are you ready? As everybody just like shouts saying, yeah. As she would say this, ready, 3, as everybody would start getting ready their like positions, 2, as everybody would start putting up their quirks and start activating them at all costs, I meant at once, as Midnight would say this, go! As the ground was basically frozen by Todoroki, except for Izuku. Izuku would go on to an invisible, or at least like a really, really small strand of like, well, web made by one of his insects. So, he would start running across the, the wire or the web, almost similarly to, well, just imagine this. Like type rope walkers, right? Well, just imagine doing just imagine doing him that, but instead of like walking over the wire or the rope or whatever or the web, instead, just imagine him running. So he would start flying. Well, kind of flying. They think that he has like some sort of like quirk that specializes in like gravity, but one of them would see that it seems to be a web that he created, as one of them being, well, wait for a second. One of them being President Mike would say this. So, I'm guessing that's one of your students, Mr. Aizawa? As Aizawa would say this. Yes, that's Shizuku Todoroki, the adopted son of Enji Todoroki, otherwise known as Endeavor. As Endeavor's cheering him on, and also cheering, well, Todoroki, or should I say Shoka. As everybody would notice this, as they would say this, wait, that's his adopted son? I didn't know that he adopted a son. As they started whispering, as one of them, being, well, Damien, would see this, as he would see Izuku running, basically on this, well, strand of web, as he would just say this, as usual, you're quite talented, Izuku. Being a part of the Apristiki project is quite a gift. Being infused with multiple quirks. or in this case, artificially made quirks. As for the rest of the students, they basically get out the ice. As for Bakugo, he basically caused an explosion that even Hiroshima would be, well, considered as a pebble. So, he would start flying, basically causing explosions. As when he does one of his explosions, like near the web, it would cause it to burn. As when Izuku saw this, he would just decide to just say this. Well, damn it. As he would just jump down and he starts running like a normal. Well, wait for a second. Running like the other students, I meant. As while he's running, he also sees a few people flying overhead. As President Mike would say this. So, can you tell us what is his quirk exactly? As he says this, being, well, Aizawa. Well, his quirk is not technically a quirk. It's actually artificially made. As one of them would say this, or at least like all of the crowd would say, wait, what? As the heroes would hear this, and they would say this, artificially made. What's that supposed to mean? As President Mike would say this, what is that supposed to mean, Mr. Aizawa? As Aizawa would say this, he was a kid from the Aprishiki Project. As in that Aprishiki Project. As most people would don't recognize that though, like, you know, era of time. But some of them, including some of the heroes, would recognize that as they would say, excuse me. To- excuse me. NG, aka Endeavor, decide to adopt one of the children from the Aprishiki Project, as one of them being, well, All Might would say this. Classic Endeavor. Uh, he would sigh, as he just thinks in his mind. He's always trying to best me, but unfortunately, I will try and do my best while he decides to just do everything by himself. As in, just literally just like using his children just like soldiers. So, after a while of like running, he made it to the first obstacle, being the large cliff. But Izuku just like, well, jumps over it, as after he jumps over the cliff, he saw several zero pointers coming towards him, getting ready to shoot him down with missiles. Izuku would see this, as he would say this. How annoying. As he would start creating webs that are basically corrosive to metal. He actually made it by himself by not technically stealing the DNA, more like studying some of his, well, insects. As apparently one insect is able to corrode metal, even though that's not in real life, just imagine that. So, Izuku would actually corrode the metal of the missile, basically making it explode in midair, as he would jump onto the, well, zero pointer and rip off its head off, throwing the head to another, well, zero pointer, and basically causing it to basically break down and explode. As he would start jumping around with grasshopper legs, as one person would see this, as it's the guy with the almost mantis-like quirk, would say this. Yeah, this guy's gonna be a worthy opponent. And when I show him that I'm better, I just hope that we can become great friends or something like that. As he smiles, as one of them would say this, being one of his classmates. Wait for a second. One of his classmates would say this. Hey, Takaru-san, let's go! As he would say this. Oh, right. As he starts jumping away, as he slices one of the arms off of the, well, the zero pointer. Back to Izuku. Izuku would start crawling around, basically on all fours, as he's running as fast as humanly possible, as he made it to the final, well, obstacle, being the minefield. When he does go into the minefield, he decides to just create a web as he starts, well, walking, well, to the finish line, while the rest of, like, well, the students would just see that, as Bakugo would say this, I'm not gonna lose! As he flies right past him, as Bakugo became first place, Izuku becoming second, and finally, Todoroki being third. As Bakugo would say this, Take that, nerd! As he would point at, well, me, as Izuku would just say to himself, Jesus, Buck, you don't really need to say that. Ugh. So, the next, well, event is going to be the, well, wait for a second, the Calvary Battle. So, when Izuku is getting ready for that, he sees a few people there, as he decides to try and pick his team, as 3 people would arrive, being Todoroki, or Shoka, and there's, wait for a second, Suyu Asui, and finally, well, Melissa Shield. As when the boys see this, they just think, damn, Izuku's lucky. As one of them would just say this, yeah, getting paired up with the most beautiful girls in Class 1A, it kinda pisses me off. As Izuku would not notice this, as the battle is about to begin, as everybody would just say this, 3, 2, 1, go! As Midnight would crack her whip onto the ground, as everybody would start charging in at Bakugo. Realizing that Bakugo fucked up because, well, he's basically a gigantic ass target, they started trying to attack him. As for Izuku and the rest of his team, his insects would start going to work and starts getting, well, the rest of their, well, headbands. As for the rest of the students, they're basically like fighting each other and trying to get their headbands, as one person would see Izuku, as he would say this, alright team, we're going for him. As he started charging in, as Izuku would see a man that resembles a insect, as Izuku would just say this, oh really? As Izuku would use one of his quirks, specifically King of Insects, as he starts controlling him, as he starts using him to start attacking him with his own team. Basically, just like, well, she or he would start, well, creating his blades, as he starts slashing at his own teammates, as one of them would say this, wait, what are you doing? As his other teammate would say this, wait for a second. His teammate would say this, Togaru, what are you doing? We're gonna lose. As he would not speak. As one of them would say this, is that Shinso doing? As they realized that he didn't speak to Shinso earlier, so who is this? Who's controlling him? As, well, Togaru, well, he accidentally falls down to the ground as he gets eliminated. As for the rest of the students, they're basically fighting amongst each other, as it's basically the end of the event. So, Izuku is basically, well, high on the leaderboard. The second highest, well, not the second highest, I meant the first highest, well, or the highest, or whatever, is Bakugo, and the third most highest is Todoroki. The fourth is obviously Melissa Shield, and so on and so forth. So, while they're waiting for the next event, it's basically lunchtime. As everybody's getting lunch, they would start talking to, well, their parents. As Izuku would start talking to Endeavor, but not only that. Well, Damien would come up to him as he would say this. Oh, it's been a long time, Engie. As Engie would say this. Oh, hello, Mr. Wait for a second. Mr. Damien. As he would say this. Oh, it's been a while. So, Izuku, how's your little paradise? As he would say this. Well, nice. And how about you? Have there been incidents lately? As he would say this. No, not at all. Nothing major for now. But either way, if you win, I will gladly let you join my agency. Or you can probably just, like, join your father's agency. As he would say this. Oh, Endeavor? As Endeavor would say this. Obviously, I'm gonna let him stay in my agency. Makes sense. So, after a while of, like, talking, he goes back to lunch as he's basically eating with his sister. As, while eating, he would see Izumi talking to her mother. her mother, Inko Midoriya, as she would look over and see Izuku. As when she saw, Izuku more closely, Izuku looks like the spitting image of, well, wait for a second, his past lover, or her past lover. As she would say this, if that really is my son, then I want to bring him back. As she would start going towards them, as the alarms would go off, as they would say this. Now it's time for the next event. So everybody start going to the locker rooms. As they start moving to the locker rooms, as, Izumi would say this. Sorry, mother, I should be going now. See ya. As for not Todoroki, I meant Inko, she would say this. Damn it. Maybe I should talk to him later. So, basically, after that, they started leaving as they started going towards the next event. Specifically, the one-on-one battles. So, as everybody's basically waiting, they basically see that the next, matches are going to be pretty easy until Izuku saw his first opponent. Tsuyu Asui. Oh boy, Izuku is definitely going to have a bad time here. So, when Izuku saw it, he would just say to himself, great, I'm being paired up with the thing that literally tried to kill all my insects. As she would see Izuku say this. Oh, hi. As Izuku would just say this. He would just say that in his mind. As the next, match would begin, being Izuku and Tsuyu Asui. As, wait for a second, god dang it. As Inko was basically watching this, she would say this. So, if that really is Izuku, why did he even join that stupid Aprishiki project or whatever it's called? And what is that quirk? I thought Asashi had a fire quirk, not a insect-like quirk. As Tsuyu would say this. Are you ready, Izuku? As Izuku would say this. Ready as I'll ever be, but I'm still quite concerned why they paired up with me, with the one predator that literally tries to eat insects like me. As the match begins, as Tsuyu would start jumping around, as she would start throwing her tongue at him, as Izuku would say this. Ugh, damn it. As he would start using webs, specifically not the, poisonous ones, but instead the ones that are created from his insects. Sorry about that, that was just my dog. Sorry. So, after a while of fighting, they would start, going at each other's throats. As Tsuyu would start using her tongue to slam her into the ground, but Izuku would just throw her away, as she would, catch herself by putting her, hands onto the ground, and she says this. Take this, Gero, as she uses her tongue to use it as a whip. As Izuku would say this. How absolutely? As he would start, using his, insect-like, appendages from his back, as he starts slicing at her, getting scars all over her body. As she would say this. Take this! As she would start creating this almost mucus, as Izuku would start slipping around, as he says this, shit, 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 as he starts grabbing onto the ground with his, insect-like, appendages, as he would say this, why you little, as she would say this, we need to use our quirks this time, so, as he would say this, I guess you're right, then, but unfortunately I can't use my Centispear, because after all, I can't use quote-unquote hero equipment, but guess I'll just have to use this for now. As his face would start being covered by his, hero mask, as he would say this, take this! As he would start charging towards her, as they would start, basically wrestling, mud wrestling, but instead of like, mud, there's mucus everywhere. So, yeah. After a while of struggling, Izuku would throw her off the arena, as Izuku is basically the winner, but Izuku was pretty tired at the time, so he would say this. I can't believe I actually won. As he would just fall to the ground, as he just fall on his knees, as he would say this. I feel so tired. I need to take a rest. After all, the next match is coming up soon, so... So, after the announcement that Izuku won, well, Inka would see this as she would say this. Izuku, you've grown up so fast. Even though I never seen you ever since you were a kid, and I, brought you to the orphanage. How many years have you grown? How much you endured? And how did you gain this ability of yours? Your ability to control insects. She would start thinking as she's basically acting like Canon Izuku, basically mumbling to herself, just like mumble, mumble, mumble. Basically, just like in anime, as everybody's just like looking at her. So, go back to Izuku, as he's basically tired, as he starts drinking a lot of water. As he would say this. I should be resting for now. The next is about to come up very soon, so... Yeah. So, yeah. He would just sit down, as the end of the video is basically here. So yeah, this is going to be the end of the episode, but before you leave, guys, I want all of you to comment down below for a hero name for Izuku, or underground hero name, because the Reaper is basically like his old name, like his old, name back in the day, his old, code name. So, naming him Reaper as a hero would, not be heroic. So, I want all of you to, pick, a hero name for him. Like, any type of hero name. You can pick whatever. Okay? Good. So, I just want all of you to comment down below and just, tell me a hero name and the reason why, and yeah. So, this is going to be the end of the episode, and so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!